Baik tu dia jadi beratahu रेडियो फिजी बहुत रेडियो फिजी रोज सुनता हूँ
रेडियो फिजी 2 देश की धड़कन.
In the news tonight, government to pay for quarantine costs. 67 arrested for breaching COVID-19 restrictions. And relief assistance rolled out to Yasawas.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Jamie Toro.
To date, the government has accommodated 355 individuals for quarantine at designated hotels since 28 March. This includes accommodation and meals of Fijians coming from abroad for their full 28 days of quarantine. There are currently 221 individuals still under quarantine. Lena Rees has more.
In a statement, the Health Ministry has clarified that government will cover the costs for those individuals who will be kept at designated quarantine facilities upon their arrival into the country. Anyone coming into the country through the Nandi International Airport is taken straight to designated hotels for a 28-day quarantine period and will be under strict supervision of health officials. This is a measure to ensure that there is no spread of COVID-19, especially from those coming in from abroad who potentially could have been exposed to the virus. No family members, friends and relatives are allowed to meet with those who are under quarantine at these hotels, and the ministry is urging them to strictly follow the measures put in place by the government. Fiji currently still has 17 confirmed cases of COVID-19. The government remains on the highest alert level and will advise the public as soon as possible if more cases are found. Fijians must remain on guard against COVID-19 and are advised to call toll-free number 158 for any COVID-19 related information. Lena Rees, FBC News.
67 people were arrested last night, including a case of lockdown breach which allegedly occurred in Nausori last weekend. A report was received yesterday that the accused had allegedly breached the Nausori lockdown restrictions after he swam from Tonga to Nandali. Of the total number of arrests, 48 were for social gathering breaches, 18 for curfew breaches, and the lone case of breach of lockdown in the Eastern Division. The Southern Division recorded 32 breaches of social gathering, the North 10 and 6 in the West. 13 curfew breaches were recorded in the South, 3 in the West and 2 in the East. Commissioner of Police Brigadier General Sitibeni Ngilio says the majority of social gathering arrests that continue to be made are of those found drinking yangwana and alcohol in groups. 7 cases were called in the Suva Magistrates Court today involving those who allegedly breached the COVID-19 restrictions. 8 people in 2 different cases appeared before Magistrate Deepika Prakash for breaching social gathering directives. Faria Begum has more.
In the first case, Vasikali Mundu Kini Vosailangi, Sevenaya Vakadhengu and Choseteki Tangi are alleged to have breached the social gathering restriction. The first and the second accused have opted to seek legal aid assistance, while the third and the fourth accused have waived their right to a counsel. Mundu and Vosailangi have been released on bail with a bond of $200, while Vakadhengu and Tangi have been asked to make arrangements for 2 sureties and bail bond. Should the 2 fail to do so, they will be remanded till the 4th of May. In the second case of social gathering breach, 4 men who are alleged with failure to comply with orders were produced before the Suva Magistrates Court. The first 2 accused, Samuela Matailangi and Levi, have been ordered by Magistrate Deepika Prakash to serve 100 hours of community service within 30 days, while Ratu Etuate and Ropate Vakatale have been handed 100 hours of community work alongside 3 months of suspended sentence. This as the 2 were additionally charged with a count each of resisting arrest. In other cases, Waisea Ranakai Taitusi Loaloa, Samuel Lomani, Tambua Sovanakalo and Tomasi Magoon were produced in court for failure to comply with orders. In these cases, the accused persons were found loitering in Suva during the curfew hours without any strong reason of doing so. Faria Begum, FBC News.
More than 5,000 Fijians have been assisted so far during the Malolo, Yasawa and Mamanudu Group Ration Distribution Initiative following Tropical Cyclone Herald. Government teams have so far visited more than 10 villages, with 32 remaining villages on the 3 islands yet to be visited. Assistant Roko Nemani Tarutaro says the villagers are grateful for the timely assistance, as most of them are still grappling with the destruction left by TC Sarai in December last year.
So far, the the assistance being given out. It's been something that the people have been really waiting for, as most of them have been recovering from TC Sarai. And when TC Herald came, most of the things that they have planted to sustain them for the next 6 months have been taken away.
The government is working to stabilize communities struck by Tropical Cyclone Harold while accepting relief supplies from the Australian and New Zealand government yesterday. Minister for Disaster Management, Inia Ratu, says they have mobilized teams to conduct damage assessments in affected communities and hope to get relief to them as soon as possible. Sanyani Mboila reports.
The government is working closely with relevant stakeholders to help affected Fijians back on track.
The focus is on the essentials, particularly water, hygiene and sanitation. Of course, we are mindful of the need if we need to go back to school. That is the education need. Shelter is important, food security, and of course the essential services in the rural areas. And that is the focus for us as we speak.
Australian High Commissioner to Fiji, John Fix, says they stand ready to help the country through this difficult time.
New Zealand and Australia have today brought in equipment to help those who have been had lost their homes and livelihoods as a consequence of TC Harold, and we've also brought in supplies and medicine to deal with the coronavirus, including PPE equipment and testing equipment. And I think this is the first of a couple of flights that will come from Australia.
New Zealand High Commissioner to Fiji, Jonathan Kerr, says they will offer support where needed.
It's a pleasure to stand next to members of the Fiji government and with my Australian colleague and other Australian colleagues here today as part of the effort that we all jointly undertake to support our neighbours in times of need.
The National Disaster Management Office will now push out relief items brought in by the two governments as soon as possible to areas affected by Tropical Cyclone Harold. Sainia Nimboila, FBC News.
Up ahead, Velomani Food Bank receives first donation. And in Successful Fijians, entrepreneur shares online business journey. This and more coming up.
Nadang ko aproslan ngarse, go erkraki, do televizyon na barong na Radio FIJIAN, nandom ibit.
Radio FIJIAN, nandom.
The body of a 52-year-old police officer has been recovered from a boat that capsized near Tomberua Island last night. Police say the victim, who was based at Nausori, had gone out fishing with 3 others when they encountered bad weather. The 3 others were rescued by fishermen. However, the police officer could not be located. Police spokesperson Ananai Soro says the victim's body was recovered after a search was conducted early this morning. An investigation is ongoing and a post-mortem examination will be conducted soon. Minister for Agriculture Dr. Mahendra Reddy says people will have to make adjustments as to which vegetables and root crops they can consume at this current time. This comes as a number of people continue to raise concerns on the high prices of vegetables and root crops after the COVID-19 lockdown and Tropical Cyclone Harold. Lena Rees has the details.
The Agriculture Minister says during this time when supply of vegetables and root crops have been affected by weather conditions, prices will be pushed up so that farmers, middlemen and vendors can gain higher profit margins.
During these times, consumers will have to make adjustment with regard to what kind of commodities they will consume and thus buy. For example, if eggplant is very expensive now, then consumers will have to reduce eggplant consumption and substitute with those veggies which are relatively cheap and in abundance.
Fiji Agricultural Marketing Authority has spent $510,155 to buy 50 tons of fresh produce from farmers during the lockdown.
This is a phenomenal achievement for AMA, as we have provided the farmers of Fiji, especially in the peri-urban and rural areas, with a readily available outlet to sell their produce to, and thus generated good cash flow income for them and their families. The effect of Tropical Cyclone Harold in particular made it even more important for farmers to harvest their crops quickly and sell it to AMA so that it doesn't get damaged in the fields.
Agriculture Minister Dr. Mahendra Reddy says they will make a major announcement tomorrow on what the ministry will be doing to push the supply of vegetables and root crops in the market. Lena Rees, FBC News.
The United States Embassy has become one of the first organizations to make a contribution towards the Velomani Food Bank, an initiative organized in partnership by government and the Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission. It aims to reach families whose relatives or workmates have tested positive for COVID-19 and were directly affected by the quarantine. CEO Joel Abraham says we are living in a time where everyone needs to show solidarity and stand together, not just as Fijians, but as human beings. The ambassador of the United States to Fiji, Joseph Sella, says every bit counts and it's important that we show our Fijian spirit.
From the United States Embassy family to our Fijian family, our Sole Rock.
We would like to show our heartful appreciation and thank you for making this first donation. It will definitely go a long way in feeding a lot of Fijian families.
The New Zealand government is racing to analyze all the information coming in on COVID-19 ahead of tomorrow's decision deadline on whether New Zealand can safely loosen lockdown restrictions and move to level 3. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Winners never quit and quitters never win. In tonight's Successful Fijian, we look into the business journey of 43-year-old Mezabeen Azam, the owner of Aman Azam, an online clothing shop. The entrepreneur has thousands of local followers on her Facebook platform, enabling her to directly sell pieces imported from various overseas countries. Faria Begum with the story.
With an eagerness to be independent, Mezabeen Azam started her online clothing business 6 to 7 years ago.
I really wanted to do something on my own. So I just tried my best with my brother. He was in India at that time. He was studying there. So he went to meet up some suppliers there. And then we got the thing that we can trust some suppliers out there. So I just tried to start off with something.
The path was not an easy one, as she had to gain the trust of her customers.
On social media, Facebook, on my Facebook account, just on my Facebook account, and starting with doing pre-orders only. I didn't have stock like I have right now. I was doing only pre-orders at that time, and the start off was really challenging because you have to give the customers the original things, and customers have to build the trust in you. It took time, but it has built up.
Azam believes family support is what has gotten her to this stage.
My husband has helped a lot with all the supporting me, mainly supporting me on my hand, like doing the deliveries on time and helping me with the household work because I have to get everything done on time. And then my brother was there mainly for when he was in India. He used to go and check the suppliers if they are trustworthy or not. My parents are there, so mainly my family, basically my family. My dad was a lot supportive too. He gave me ideas what to do and what not to do.
She says it was not easy to start a business when she first started, but it is now bearing the fruits of her efforts.
When I started my business, I had to run around a lot. Run around to the company's office, run to Firkal and to FedEx to get the clearance on time. But now the government has done so much of the improvement that everything can be done online. This like the registration of the business, you can register your business online, and plenty of things that have become much more easier than when we started up. So it is very easy nowadays to start up a small business, and to just start off, you just start off with a small thing, and then you can build up with time. Like it took me about 6 or 7 years to build up to this. Now the customer trust has built up, and I'm doing quite good.
Azam has become an inspiration for many women in Fiji and abroad. She is known for her pieces sold online. For her, it's now about giving back to the community during this difficult time. Faria Begum, FBC News.
Coming up, Dean's cancellation last option for secondary schools rugby union, and OFC COVID-19 funding vital for FIJIFA. This and more after the break.
My name is Neha and I'm from Karavi, And Mirchi FM, it's hot.
Mirchi FM, it's hot.
The Fiji Secondary Schools Rugby Union have 3 options for their Dean's competition when the second school term starts in June. Executives met prior to the lockdown and mapped out ways on how they can still have their competition in term 2. FSSRU President Setereki Merikula says the options on the table for the union will depend on the number of weeks there is for the next school term, while the last resort will be to cancel this year's Dean's competition.
The other option is to have 7-a-side competition. We won't be able to have a 15 competition between 8 to 5 weeks before the school holidays. Less than 5 weeks, we are rolling off the FSSRU competition.
The FIJIAN 15's players are focusing on their individual training ahead of the Rugby World Cup next year. With the COVID-19 restrictions in place, the side has no other choice but to train individually as sporting facilities have been closed. Captain Sereima Leoningila says this has impacted their scheduled trainings and test matches lined up for the side.
We were wanting more test match to get us ready for next year. And now with what's happening, it's really like uncertain.
The Rugby World Cup is scheduled for September 18th next year in New Zealand. The postponement of the Olympic Games will have a huge impact on a number of competitions that Fijian athletes are expected to be a part of next year. Amid the global economic impacts of COVID-19, sending athletes to the Olympic Games and other events such as the Pacific Mini Games next year may not be viable. Tali Matairakula with the story.
Sending athletes to both the Olympics and Pacific Mini Games next year will incur major costs.
With the Olympics moving, are we still going to have a Pacific Mini Games next year? From our point of view, I don't think we can afford it.
Maisie says it is time to be more realistic with funding.
Funding is going to be a big issue because, let's face it, funding that goes to sports is not as important as looking after the health of the country.
FASANOC Chief Executive Lorraine Ma says discussions are underway with the Pacific Games Council on the next step needed to be taken.
Acknowledging that the postponement of Tokyo 2020 is going to impact on their own games. And so we're waiting to hear from them, what kind of decision they're going to make in terms of their own games.
The Pacific Mini Games will be held in Saipan, Northern Mariana Islands, while the Olympics is scheduled to be played from July 23rd to 8th August next year in Tokyo, Japan. Tali Materkula, FBC Sports.
The OFC COVID-19 Solidarity Fund will be vital for the Fiji Football Association as they work to get the sport back on its feet. The OFC Executive Committee approved funding to 11 member associations, including Fiji, to help reduce the impact of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Fiji will be eligible to apply for funding of up to New Zealand $50,000. FIJIFA Chief Executive Mohammed Yusuf says the association is taking the necessary steps to apply for the funding.
Visit the districts, the clubs, the players, the volunteers, the referees, coaches, and then fill up the questionnaire. We'll gather all the information, and when OFC is ready with the forms, then where appropriate and is approved, then we'll apply accordingly.
There were occasional showers and a few thunderstorms over Vanua Levu, eastern and interior Viti Levu, Taviuni and nearby smaller islands. Elsewhere it was fine apart from isolated afternoon or evening showers. Looking to the west, good weather prevailed over the division with slight showers experienced in the afternoon, temperatures were in the late 30s towards the latter part of the day. Eastwards from Pacific Harbour to Suva, more of the same conditions with plenty of sunshine. Up north, mostly sunny and hot conditions. Let's see easterly winds at 10 to 15 knots, gusting to 20 knots through the passages, moderate to rough seas. The next low tide is at 9:27 p.m. with a high tide at 3:53 tomorrow morning. Sunrise will be at 6:20. For tomorrow, cloudy periods with some showers over the eastern parts and interior of the larger islands. Temperatures in all major centers will be fairly cool, hitting 30 degrees or lower. Looking further on to Tuesday, mostly fine conditions with slight showers expected in some areas of the group. Recapping the main stories, government to pay for quarantine costs, 67 arrested for breaching COVID-19 restrictions, and relief assistance rolled out to your showers. For these stories and others, you can tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM to our poll question. This week we're asking, should those caught breaching curfew be given mandatory jail time? Visit our FPC website to answer. You can send us newsworthy pictures and videos on email fpcnews@fpc.com.fj or share it with us via our Facebook page. That's FPC News. That's your FPC 7 p.m. news for this Sunday. I'm Jamie Toro. Thank you for the privilege of your time. From everyone here at Broadcasting House, stay safe and please stay at home as much as possible in these unprecedented times.
Bola, I'm Miri, I'm from Lotoka and I love Gold FM because they play all my classic hits.
Gold FM, only the classic hits.